two, one. Okay, we're live for June 15th zoning hearing board meeting. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. We got a couple things on the agenda tonight. If I can say, we have some housekeeping to do. Everybody is here except for Pete. So we have 4 members here. I'll mention that right off the bat. 4 members, that's even. You never know where it happened with that. But that's that. We do have for some housekeeping, we have been a request for a continuance for appeal number 211914. They have asked for a continuance. And that's one of the things we got to talk about. And I guess we can talk about that right off the bat, Adam. We can have a vote on that, or?
Yeah, we got an email from Robert Snyder, who is their engineer from Kelly and Close, sent to Jim Majewski today, this afternoon, asking for a request until the next available zoning board meeting,
Which would be
and waiving all time constraints under the MPC.
next meeting would be what, Adam?
It would be July 6th, assuming we have an agenda for that meeting. Sometimes that one's canceled just because it's near July 4th,
Right,
but
exactly.
otherwise it would be July 6th.
All right.
If I may, Tony, there are no other agenda items on July 6th. So I think the thought was we would cancel that and go to the meeting on July 20th for this continuance.
I agree with that. Anybody have an opposition to that?
Nope.
Everybody? I think that makes sense since there's nothing else going on that day. All right, that being said, I'll look for a motion to continue that to the fall. What's that date, Adam, the following meeting?
July 20th.
July 20th. If we can grant, anybody want to make a motion to grant the continuance to July 20th?
I'll grant the motion to continue appeal 21-1914 to July 20th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Barring no discussion, I'll go for a vote. All those in favor of the continuance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? No one's against. The continuance is granted to the July 20th meeting. Okay, that one's done. Okay, that one's done, July 20th. So that'll happen. That's until 1914. Okay, so now the next, I like to do this in reverse order. That last one on the list, the 211918, looks a little bit less tedious. If we can do that one first, it seems like that would be the correct thing to do to get them out of the way. The other one looks a little bit more involved. It might take more time. There's no sense letting them hang around all this amount of time. So as far as 1918, if we can get them up and ready to go and be sworn in the meantime, Adam, is there any housekeeping on that or anything exhibits you want to enter in for the 1918, which is
Brian Huck.
the Hucks, that's correct.
Yeah, we have just a few exhibits. The application, the application is A1, the site plan is A2, proof of publication is B1, proof of posting is B2, and B3 is the notice to neighbors.
All right. If we can have them step up. Oh, there they are, the Hucks,
Hello.
Hi.
and be sworn in.
Hi, guys. You solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
All right. That being said, tell us what you want.
So we're just looking to replace an existing fence that's around our yard. The at least one side of it is completely in disrepair. I've had to nail it and bubble gum it up and quite a few times now. So yeah, that was it. We hired a company to install it. They filed for the permit, and now we're here.
Okay. Generally, this is not a big deal, but I know the township, is the township participating in this, Barb?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Before I get to you, Barb, does anybody here have any, do you realize what our standard instructions are for this, and from this board, we kind of wanted the fence. If you're going to do this, there's a few things you will be responsible for, and that is the height of the fence. If it goes clear, if we're inclined to approve this, the height of the fence, you'll be responsible. If the fence has to be removed, you will pay all costs for all that in case the township has to get in there for any reason whatsoever. And you'll keep a 2-inch minimum above the grass to allow for waters to travel through it. And if you're okay with that, that would be good. But before we vote on anything, and it sounds like you are okay, are you okay with all those conditions?
This is the first time I'm hearing it, so just so I'm clear, in case of anything needed to be removed, we pay for that. The 2-inch minimum, even though we have a pool, that doesn't void the pool ordinances or anything.
No.
Great. Yeah, I don't think that's fine.
We're
Yeah.
good. We're great.
Okay, well, that being said, before I go to Barb, is any other board member have anything to say?
I have no question.
Okay, Barb, you're interested in this one.
Yes, I just have a couple questions. The proposed replacement fence, is it going to be solid or like an open type picket fence?
It's going to be a 6-foot stockade fence.
And with it being stockade, is there going to be openings between the slots?
No.
No? So the zoning ordinance indicates that any structure within this floodplain area is not to obstruct the flow of water. What can you do other than the 2-inch is above ground to ensure that there won't be an obstruction of the flow of water in the event of a severe storm?
I'm open to any suggestions. Our existing fence is a solid fence, so I wasn't aware that we would have to make any changes. Again, because it's just replacing, but if you have guidance on something that you would like us to do, we'll certainly consider that. I'd be happy to.
Well, let me ask Mr. Majewski, who's our zoning officer. Mr. Majewski, would a stockade fence impede the flow of water in this area?
Yes. We would
What would-
recommend a different type of fence, either like a wrought iron fence, although you don't get a lot of privacy out of that, or at a minimum, like a shadow box type of fence where the boards are staggered so that water can pass in and around through. So the opening's sufficient that water can pass through. It still meets with the swimming pool code.
Okay.
And would you be, Mr. and Mrs. Huck, would you be willing to choose either the wrought iron or shadow box style fence if the board were inclined to grant your request?
I mean, without having a chance to discuss it between ourselves, I don't think wrought iron would be an option, but if shadow box is the only way that we're able to replace the fence, it would certainly be something we consider. Are there any other options available to us, just out of curiosity? Sorry about that.
I guess whatever type of fence could ensure openings other than just at the bottom to allow the flow of water. So even a picket style fence.
Well, I mean, could they install the flood panels that are installed in a foundation when a house is built in a flood zone for the lower unfinished level? They typically have flood panels in the front and back that are usually only about maybe 20 inches wide by 8 inches high. That's been my experience. I mean, is that something that would satisfy us?
I think that's overdoing it myself. I mean, have you thought about the shadow box fence? That's what I have. That works pretty good. That's like,
Sure. Yeah, we considered
privacy, but it allows everything to go through it.
Yeah, we considered all the different options available to us.
I think it was coming down to cost for us. That's just a little bit more than our price point could handle at the time. But
Right.
if that's a non-negotiable, then we'll have to take a look.
Well, I hate to force you to something you don't know about. Is this something you want to look into? I mean, I hate to have a continuance on this, but it sounds like you're unsure. You were unsure about these options to begin with.
Yeah, I just wasn't aware that they weren't presented ahead of time. So this is the first time we're hearing it. It's just a lot to digest. My other again, while I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, we have been working with the fence company for a while now. I believe they've already ordered the materials for our job. Would it be possible to use the existing stockade fence and just remove, say, every other picket? Would that allow for what you're talking about. I'm just trying to make sure I don't have to come out of pocket a whole bunch of extra money to repurchase fence that's already been purchased for our job.
You went and bought the fence already without getting approval for it?
We've been working with the fencing company. They wanted to make sure that they weren't putting us 2 months behind this hearing. So it's my understanding that they have our fencing, because we already paid the deposit, on their yard, just waiting for you guys to give us the okay. I could be wrong on that, but that's my understanding of the situation.
Yeah, that's a tough one because we really, the township has an issue with that. I don't know if just taking every other board out is gonna be something you even want.
I mean, I'm just thinking that, again, we know that we're using the fence we already have purchased, so we already know it's in our price range. If it satisfies you guys, it's a workaround so that we're, not going underwater here with the fence purchase.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem to
I have a
satisfy.
question. Jim, was there a permit on the previous fence?
That was before this property was mapped into the floodplain, back in I forget when the fence was done. It was some time back.
So,
And if I may, have a suggestion that we could make it that if the board was so inclined and the township is acceptable to it, that they just provide a fence that is suitable to allow water to pass through, subject to the review and approval of the township. And that way we can work with the applicant,
Okay.
come up with what will work most cost effectively for them, yet still safeguard the public from dangers of flooding.
that's what I was going to ask. This is something that you work with them and in case they makes life easier for everybody.
Sure, I like that idea. Barb, you're okay with that? I assume.
I'm fine. And again, the concern was, even though there's that 2-inch gap at the bottom, if it's a solid fence, it's not going to be as effective in a major storm.
Sure, right. All right, was that something you would be okay with? When you finally submitted it, would be okay with the township?
So I'm sorry, maybe I missed a step there. Could you just clarify what you're suggesting?
Jim, you want to explain that to him again when you say it, or Matt? Anybody.
So what we're suggesting is to have a vote to approve or not approve your installation of the fence, subject to you working with Jim or the engineering department directly to find something that satisfies their concern, but also deals with your price point.
Okay. Yeah,
We
that
would
sounds
be open to
fair.
that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
'Cause I don't think anybody's against you having a fence. You need it. It's a pool. You already have one. I think it's just a matter of finding the product that works for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, we
And if-
appreciate that.
Yeah, and if I may, they also have to satisfy the swimming pool code. So just taking out every other board, I have just a little hesitancy because I want to make sure that it is compliant.
Understood. Okay.
All right, anybody else?
Just a legal formality, that if the variance is granted, that the decision should state that the granting of the variance may result in increased premium rates for flood insurance, and such variances may increase the risk to life and property, and that applies to all variances having to deal with the floodplain.
Understand that?
Yes.
Insurance could go up.
No problem.
All right. Anybody else? Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
No public comment? Unless anybody else has something they want to add, I'll look to a motion.
I'll
Go ahead, you want to?
go ahead.
Go ahead, Pam.
I'll make a motion to approve 21-1918, subject to working with the township on a final medium that is acceptable to both the applicant and the township. Does that work, Jim?
Sort of.
And
I
then
guess-
add Adam's caveats to the end of that.
Yes, we probably want to add what Adam said there.
Okay, I'll add what Adam said, but I don't have it in front of me.
That's why I don't do the motion that much.
We've never added that to the formal motion before.
Jimmy's being a stickler.
It gets included in the decision
Okay.
that gets mailed to the, that gets mailed
Okay.
out afterwards.
All right. That being said, do we have a second?
Second it.
Second? Any discussion? There for no discussion, I'll ask for a vote. Those saying aye?
Aye.
Right.
Aye. Anybody against? Nobody against? Your variance is granted based on what we said.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Good night.
You too.
All right. Okay, well done, Pam. Well done. Okay, next is appeal number 1906, I believe. All right, if we can get them to step up to the plate. Adam, in the meantime, you can enter any exhibits that need to be entered.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm gonna mark these. Ed, if I missed anything, please let me know, but I think I do have it. A1 is the application. A2 is the reasons for the requested relief, prepared by Ed Murphy's office. A3 is the impervious surface breakdown calculations and the stormwater management controls, which were updated 5/7/21. A4 is the zoning and URSAM plans, which I believe are dated 2/12/21. And A5 is the wetland, floodplain, landscape, and stormwater plans, dated 5/7/21. B1, proof of publication. B2, proof of posting. B3, notice to the neighbors.
Adam, before we go any further, I was looking at the paperwork, and there was 7 variances they were seeking. I thought I heard that we got rid of a few of them, or am I mistaken there, or we're still on track for the 7?
I believe it's down to 4, and Mr.
Correct,
Murphy can
Tony.
confirm
You're
that.
Oh,
right.
is it? Oh, there's Ed. Hi, Ed. How you doing?
Good, you're correct. We've
So-
reduced, with the submission of the revised plan and the revised layout of the proposed home, the number of variances has been reduced from 7 to 4.
So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Is that the ones we're talking about?
If you look at the zoning plan that Adam just made reference to, in the lower right-hand corner, there's the list of current variances that are sought as part of this revised application, and there's 4 of them.
Oh, A, B, C, and D.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. So who's here on behalf? Just you, Ed, or you got someone?
Now, I'm here tonight. I represent the applicant, Justin Gennady. I hope you can see on the
I do
screen.
see Justin.
And then I don't see him in person. I see his name, Gabriel Deck. I see him listed. There he is.
There he is.
He and his wife Alexandra are the applicant.
Okay.
So 3 of us are on tonight.
3 are on tonight. Do we need to be sworn in here, Adam or Bill?
But there's other parties, Tony, that I think want to be recognized. But yes, whenever you're ready, after we get everybody in, we can be sworn.
All right. Do we have more people coming in?
Yes.
Here's Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is John Fenningham. I represent Scott and Kathy McDonald of 829 Edgewood Road. They are neighbors to the subject flag lot. They adjoin to that flag lot. They are requesting party status.
Okay.
And in addition, after notice to Ed and Adam and Barbara Kirk, I'm going to be requesting a continuance, and that is to allow me the opportunity to engage a engineer to support the opposition position of my clients. So tonight I had proposed to Mr. Murphy and Ms. Kirk and to Adam that I'm not going to cross-examine the applicant's witnesses. I'm not going to make any opening statement or present any opposition evidence, but again, request a continued hearing date to do so.
Why can't they be here tonight? I must have missed that part.
I thought I had an engineer as of last Thursday and through the clients, but I do not have an engineer that can testify. I was in touch with a replacement engineer today, but he can't even meet me until next week. So I could not prepare him to participate this evening.
All right. Okay, that's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
And can we stay on that topic for a moment? Because I think all of us in the waiting room were listening to your commentary about the first item tonight that was continued. And I heard you indicate that you wanted to continue things to July 20.
That's correct.
I have a conflict on July 20 in Upper Makefield, and Justin is on vacation that week. So that's a problem for us. We both are free on July 6th, even though I know you would prefer not to do that. But waiting till August, I think, is a hardship for us. And we'd rather, if you're going to continue it, which John and I have already talked, and we agreed that we would agree to continue after tonight on the ground rules we just talked about. But our hope and expectation was it would be on July 6th, not a date later than that.
And if I could speak to that, Tony, I can't commit to that because I'm at the liberty of this expert that I'm trying to retain. I would point out, not aggressively, that this matter was continued twice before, not on behalf of my clients.
We lost you.
I'm out of town myself on July 20, as is Scott McDonald. I'm away on business July. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was saying that I'm away on business on July 20, out of state, Indiana. Scott McDonald is away also that night. I just don't know if July 6th is too soon, understanding all the urgencies on the DEX application. But again, my point, if I didn't get across, was that this case has already been continued twice, once by the applicant and once by the township's request. And so I don't want to, be forced to appear July 6th and then again have to ask for a continuance. I'm sympathetic to Ed's comment, but that's my predicament.
Well, what do we do here, Adam?
Well, just to give the board and the applicants additional information, I will be away July 6th and I'm not available to attend. So I don't know if that helps or hurts anybody, but just information.
It's yes, I got that, Pam. I understand that it is a holiday week. Ed, your comment about being a hardship if you get into August, is it really hardship?
No,
I know you want to get it through.
We continued the application once because the township raised some objections and it was prudent for all of us to try to meet to see if we could address them. The other continuance was a result of the lack of a quorum one night that the board had. So
that's true.
Look, we're going to be bound by whatever the consensus is of the zoning hearing board as to when this matter is going to be rescheduled. I would prefer not to wait until August, but that's up to you guys. You've heard everybody's position. We've been sitting tight since March, and I'd rather not wait another month or more. It sounds like we're going to be pushed into August the way this is going.
Is there a reason that we couldn't start the hearing? And because I don't think this is going to be a one-night deal.
No, I know you're right, Matt. We are going to go tonight, and I think don't misunderstand what John Fenningham said. We understand, and everybody's agreed that we're going to present Justin Giannotti's engineering testimony through all the exhibits tonight. So we are going to get going. There just won't be any cross-examination. So whenever we pick up again, it will be presumably either Barbara or John cross-examining Justin to start with. So.
And I agree with that. I told Ed that in advance.
And you don't, John, you don't think you can make the 6th?
I can't promise the engineer couldn't even agree on a day next week until he checked his calendar just to meet to preliminarily review it.
And candidly, if Pam is going to hear the testimony tonight, I would not want to go on the 6th if Pam is unavailable. So otherwise, Pam would be forced to read the transcript before she would participate at another hearing. So that's if Pam is unavailable, that's practically makes little sense to go on the 6th.
No, I would suggest we go into August then. I hate to do it. I don't know what meeting that would be, the 3rd, no, the 10th.
Good.
Is that correct? The 3rd? What am I looking here? 1st and 3rd meeting, right?
August 3rd.
August 3rd. I mean, August 3rd would satisfy everybody. I know Mr. Murphy doesn't want to go that long, and John can't be ready. A little bit of a conundrum there. Looks like
I'm okay with August 3, just for my 2 cents.
Ed, would that work for you? I mean, you see.
Yeah, it's gonna have to, Tony. It will have
I
to.
need to do it. I want to get it done as quick as everybody else. But Pam, the situation with Pam, I mean, it's a holiday week. We can't fault anything for that. She's not going to be here. That wouldn't be right. I think it wouldn't be.
I understand.
Anybody else got a comment here besides me? I mean, I think August 3rd is the way to go.
Hi, Anthony. This is David, the moderator. I just want to let you know we have 23 people in the waiting room for.
Oh, okay.
Will
All
those
right.
will those folks be heard tonight, or would they be heard on the 3rd of August?
The latter. I think
I think
typically
they're- I think
public
August.
comments heard at the end.
So I don't know if you want to let those folks know how public comment is going to be handled, but there's over 20 people in public comment.
Well, if they didn't, they probably weren't aware there would possibly be a continuance. So for having them wait around tonight and we're not going to hear them makes no sense. But
You can still have public comment.
even before his
Yeah,
expert.
they're allowed to speak.
Okay.
If you want to do that, otherwise you're just.
I don't have a problem. I just don't want
Yeah.
to think that they can't.
You still might have more people next,
Sure.
at the continued hearing, but
Mhm.
I don't see why we can't have them speak tonight.
All right, well, let them hang out. And if the time permits, we'll have them.
All right, thank you.
All right. So, let's do it. So we don't need to do that continuance right now. We can wait for later. And in the meantime, we can present the case.
Well, I guess to complete that first part of the record, recognizing that John's clients are immediately abutting our property, we do not object to John's clients having party status. So
Okay.
clear that up. And
All right.
whenever, Bill, did you want to swear in
Sure.
Yes.
Who am I doing?
Justin and Gabriel? At least, I'm not sure Gabe is testifying tonight, but Justin and Gabriel be sworn in, please.
Justin, Gabe, do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And what about Justin? Are you?
Yeah, he got sworn.
Oh, you got sworn in? Okay. All right. Well, then we're ready to go.
Okay, and with everybody's permission, I'll do a quick overview so everybody has a sense of what
Okay.
we're trying to accomplish tonight. But
Thank you, Ed.
I'm here tonight, as the application indicates, on behalf of Gabriel Deck and his wife Alexandria. They are equitable owners under an agreement of sale to purchase 2 specific tax parcels that are identified in the application as TMPs 20-39-4-1 and 20-39-4-2. The plan proposes to consolidate both of those parcels, and Justin will describe each of them separately when we get started, but each in their own way is non-conforming. But our proposal is to merge both of those parcels into a single flag lot that contains slightly less than 38,000 square feet. The properties, plural, today are vacant. The property is zoned R2 residential medium density. And what is being proposed is to build a single family detached dwelling for Gabriel and Alexandra on the property. The sellers of the property are those that live immediately in front of this particular property. And as I think everyone on the call is aware, this application was originally submitted in February of this year with a hearing scheduled for March 16th. As you heard Mr. Fenningham and others comment upon, that application, that hearing that night was continued because at that point, Lower Makefield, through the presence of Barbara Kirk, indicated, and based on direction given to Barb by the Board of Supervisors, indicated that they were opposed to the application. I don't believe at that early stage we were aware of the opposition of the McDonald's, but we may have been. But in any event, the matter was continued to give us a chance to evaluate the plan and evaluate the concerns that had been expressed to us to date at that point. As a result of what we learned were the nature of some of the objections, we prepared and submitted a revised application. And as the chairman indicated a few minutes ago, that revised application dramatically reduced the extent of zoning relief required and had some significant changes to the placement of the home and the impact of that, all of which you're going to hear shortly from Justin. So as we sit here this evening, as I understand it, the township remains in opposition to the application. Obviously, Mr. Fenningham on behalf of his clients do as well. And we're going to talk about, as we go through the exhibits that Adam made reference to, the current site conditions, the presence of the various natural resources that are located on the property, the impact of the township ordinances as they are applied to those natural resources, and the available area for building a single-family home on the lot, and then talk about what's left on the lot to be built upon, and thereafter talk about the reduced scope of zoning relief that would be required. So I think with that as background and recognizing that Justin's already been sworn, we'll start this evening with Justin. And Justin, if you would, we won't belabor it, but please identify your name, business address, and your occupation for the benefit of the board.
Sure, and good evening, everyone. So my name is Justin Giannotti. I am the Principal and Regional Manager for Dynamic Engineering. Address is 826 Newtown Yardley Road in Newtown, PA. Professional engineer. My CV was submitted for the record. Been a professional engineer for 14 years and been accepted by this board on numerous occasions in the past.
And as Justin alluded to, shortly before the hearing tonight, I provided in advance to Adam, to John Fenningham, and Barb Kirk a copy of Justin's curriculum vitae for everyone to look at. John's indicated he had no objection to Justin's qualifications to testify about the various aspects of the application this evening. Justin, I think, is known to the board. He has been previously qualified and testified in the past as well. Although, Barb, if you have any questions, feel free, or Adam, anybody wants to.
The township's not in opposition to Justin testifying as your expert engineer. I do have a quick question, though, for the record. Are you submitting his CV as an exhibit?
I am.
Okay.
We can mark that as A6 then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any board, go ahead. Any board members have opposition to him being an expert?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll just confirm Ed's comment about my client's position. We do not oppose Justin testifying as an expert.
Okay, thank you.
Justin, now that we've over that qualifications issue, let's focus on the property, which is the subject of the application tonight. First, you obviously are well familiar with the property, correct?
That's correct.
You visited the site multiple times.
Correct.
And you've been involved in the preparation of both the original plan and the most recently amended plan that I just made reference to, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You heard me indicate that we were going to try to review a series of exhibits that I circulated as a courtesy to everybody in advance yesterday afternoon. So I believe Adam, Mr. Fenningham, and Ms. Kirk all have those exhibits, correct, guys?
Yes.
Okay. Adam, or I'm sorry, Justin, if you would, let's take them one at a time, because it essentially will enable those that are participating tonight and those in the virtual audience to have a more clear understanding of the site and the natural resources that impact the developability of the site.
Sure.
First, let's talk, and Justin, as we talk about each plan, let's make sure we identify it for the record, referring to the legend in the lower right-hand corner of the plan, its date, and who prepared it, all right?
Sure. So the first plan, and this is all collectively known as Exhibit A5 of the exhibits that were submitted today. This is the zoning hearing plan, the zoning plan that was submitted as part of our application, represented as a date of 2/12. I want to note that there is a revision that wasn't earlier referenced, the 5/7. That was the revision of the plan that was previously submitted for this hearing. So I want to make sure that we're noting we're all looking at the same plan as a revision of 5/7/21.
Correct. So that is the plan that was part of the revised application, which is the subject of tonight's application and which has the reduced scope of zoning relief, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So you prepared that zoning plan dated 2/12/21, last revised May 7/21.
That's correct.
All right. Describe for the benefit of the board and the audience what that plan represents.
Sure. The property in question, as Mr. Murphy already alluded to, it consists of two parcels. I'm going to get into that onto the next exhibit, which is the plan of survey, which delineates them a little better. The first parcel is the flag portion, which consists of 1.7 acres, and that's just the flag pole portion right here.
Not
And the larger-
1.7, Justin, no. Not
Excuse me 1 second. Can we make that bigger anyway?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Justin, it's not 1.7 acres, the flag.
That's
I
much
said
better. That's much
0.7.
better. I start again from the flag lot.
Sure. So the consists of two parcels. The flag portion of the lot is 0.7 acres, and that is the flag pole right here. The second parcel consists of the flag portion, and that is 0.7 acres. So collectively, it is 0.87 acres, and that is the subject parcel.
All right, now, Justin, let me ask you a couple questions before you go on.
Mhm.
What we're referring to as the flag parcel is really a very long, very narrow, singular strip of ground, correct?
Correct.
And how long is that strip based on Exhibit A1? Or the first sheet of Exhibit A5?
The flagpole itself is approximately 410 feet long.
Okay, and how wide is it?
18 feet approximately. So the bottom part here is about 17.99. The back is 18.06. So 18 feet
Okay.
wide.
And as odd as it may be, that today is an existing freestanding separate tax parcel.
Really?
Correct, Justin?
Correct. Exists as a tax parcel separate from the other lot.
And none of us who have been around the block once or twice can explain why anyone years ago would have created a tax parcel in that length or width.
Correct.
Now, the second parcel, and obviously a parcel that's 18 feet wide and 410 feet long, today under the current ordinance is clearly non-conforming, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The second parcel is a more traditional rectangle, right?
Correct. It's approximately 116 feet wide along the front by 268 feet long along the back here, approximately.
Okay. And the problem with that lot is that it is landlocked, correct? It has no frontage on a public street.
Correct. There's the flagpole itself, where the driveway is shown, is not part of that parcel. It's a separate parcel. So that parcel that we just described is completely landlocked from public streets.
Okay. And that, both of those parcels surround a property that's everyone looking at the screen is identified as parcel 20-039-004, owned by Troy and Amy Bausinger, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And to the north of this parcel is a property that is owned by Anthony D. and Susan Arcino. Now, we know that is no longer accurate because Tony sold that property to the Matthews, or the McDonald's, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's where the McDonald's live. They share the northern boundary line with the landlocked rectangle.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything about the zoning plan that is on the screen now that you'd like to highlight for the board before we turn to the next screen?
No, I think it gets clear as we work through the other exhibits and work its way through.
Before you do that, and I'll ask you the question because I'm not exactly certain, Does this plan better highlight the easements that exist today, or does the next plan?
The plan of survey clearly shows those easements.
All right, but for the benefit of the audience and the board as a preview, this property, aside from all the other burdens that you're going to hear about that it suffers from, has impressed on it 2 existing easements, correct?
I'll correct you. It's 3 easements, Ed.
3,
So
okay.
and I'll show them to you here, and then I'll delineate them better on the next plan. There's a 10-foot wide storm sewer easement that exists along the flagpole portion that runs all the way back to an existing riprap apron, which is a dissipator for an existing storm sewer, which discharges into the stream. Then you have a 15-foot wide storm sewer easement, which overlaps slightly, but then continues down the rest of the flagpole. So the flagpole itself is mostly an easement. And then the stream itself, Silver Lake, has a 50-foot wide easement, 25 on either side of the center line of the stream, which is an easement for stream cleaning. And these were all existing easements as documented during the subdivision of this property, the original subdivision in the 50s, and then the further subdivision in 75.
You made reference to a stream cleaning easement, right?
Correct.
Okay, and we'll cover those in more detail in the next plan.
Then the next plan is the plan of survey prepared by Fortified Services. This plan is
Dated, please. Let's make sure everything gets stated and properly acknowledged, all right?
Sure. This well, sort of the surveyor dates the plan here.
Looks like the work was completed January 21, 2021.
That's correct. Yeah, I guess that's how he dates his plan. So when it was actually completed.
Okay. And that's in the legend in the lower right-hand corner. Okay.
Correct.
All right, review for the board and the audience what the survey plan depicts on the screen.
Mr. Murphy, before you begin, is this been already marked as a numbered exhibit?
It was collectively marked, Barb, as part of Exhibit A5, I believe.
Thank you.
I think I marked the zoning and URSAM plans as A4. And I
Right.
think A5 was the wetland, floodplain, landscape, and stormwater plans.
And A6 is the CV, so do you want to make the survey A7, Adam?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're all referencing the same thing.
All right, so the CV is A6, the survey that we're going to talk about now is A7.
Okay. So the plan of survey is a boundary, location, and topographic survey prepared based on field conditions as of January 21st, 2021. It is the basis for the other plans that we submitted, is the basis of the zoning plan. This identifies all natural resources on site, the site topography, the existing features, and as we already previously alluded to, the encumbrances of existing easements on the property. This also better defines the separate parcels. So right here, you'll see parcel 20-39-04-002. That is 0.169 acres. That is the flagpole, which goes all the way front to back. And then the larger parcel up here, which we've previously described as 0.7 acres, collectively making up the subject parcel that we are proposing to merge tonight and further improve.
Now, this plan calls out plan books and pages for the various easements, the 3 easements you just made reference to, and they're highlighted on the plan. The 10-foot wide storm sewer easement is in Plan Book 137, page 7. The 15-foot wide storm sewer easement, Plan Book 137, page 7 also. And lastly, the stream cleaning easement, same page and the same plan book. Those 3 easements all were created by virtue of the plan of Sylvan Glen that's made reference to multiple times on this plan. That is the plan that was approved originally in 1951, I believe, and then recorded in 52. Is that right, Justin?
That's correct.
Can you make that a little bit larger there with the stream cleaning areas?
We have another plan, Tony, that's going to highlight in color how those all fit together.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
And before we do that, Ed, I want to mention too, there's number of natural resources, one of them being wetlands. The wetlands that we have delineated on this plan were delineated in the field by an ecologist, surveyed based on flag locations, and that the locations of the wetlands as delineated in the field are shown on this plan of survey and then carried through our plans of the zoning plan and the existing features plan throughout our whole application. But that is all basis of a survey, not just a visual inspection.
So to summarize, the survey upon which this application is based is current. It was just done a few months ago. And the wetland delineation, same thing, current, just done a few months ago. Points labeled in the field, picked up by the surveyor, and then translated onto the plan, on this plan and in all future plans.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else of note that you want to highlight on what we're now referring to as A7, the survey plan?
No, I think that's pretty clear. Well, just as a point of reference to everyone where this property is located, I know I didn't get into that, but this is approximately about 700 feet south of Edgewood Drive along Woodland Drive. So if we're looking at this plan and orienting ourselves, Edgewood Road is north of this plan, about 600, 700 feet away, just as a point of reference.
Okay.
Next plan.
Yep. Identify it first before we talk about it.
The next plan is the URSAM plan, existing.
Describe what that acronym means before you move on. I know Adam made reference to it. It's marked as Exhibit A4, I believe. So
that's correct. So
what does URSAM stand for?
Environmental Resources Site Analysis Map Plan. So this is a requirement of Lower Makefield Township, which delineates all natural resources, easements, and other restrictions on a property and presents them to a point where you can determine the site capacity. And that's, we'll work through the calculations shortly, but it's all color coordinated with a legend. And if I can, and if I will, I'll just walk through the colors so that so everyone here is familiar with it.
But before you do that, in deference to the chairman, blow it up bigger so we all can see it.
Sure. So here's the property in question, same property as referenced before. We'll start with the pink because that is one of the most restricting. That is the easements on the property. We already alluded to the 10-foot wide and to the 15-foot storm sewer easements. And we also talked about the stream clearing easement. So everything shown in pink is an easement and immediately based on our site calculations gets removed from the base site area, which means it's undevelopable and needs to come out of that base site area calculation.
So where's the stream?
The stream is right, if you look right here, I'll zoom in on it for you. The stream is dead center of that pink.
I see.
So it's that stream cleaning easement is a 25-foot offset on either side of the center line of that stream. So the stream goes right down the center.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those easements, assuming they were all approved in 51, recorded in 51, 52, are all 70 years old, correct, Justin?
Correct. And those easements of our, and if you look here, of our 0.87 acres collectively between those two parcels, those easements equate for 0.27 acres of that property. So right off the bat, we're down to 0.6 acres of a base site area.
Okay.
All right, I'm working our way.
Start back to front. What is the canary yellow or whatever color you want to refer that to?
Sure. The yellow here is the wetland buffer, which is not already covered by a floodplain or a wetland area. So this is
what does that mean?
So the way natural resources are done in Lower Makefield, if they overlap. So if your wetland overlaps a woodland, you count the wetland and not the woodland too. So there's an order of magnitude that we go through as a breakdown. So floodplain soils, lakes, steep slopes, and then woodlands. As you work through the natural resources on the site, you don't double dip and count them twice.
But you have to, doesn't the ordinance require you to count the the resource that has the most restrictions? So using your example, wetlands and woodlands, since woodlands, you probably can disturb more than you can a wetland, you count the wetland, but don't double dip and count the woods.
Correct. And if you, by that token, will work its way in that order. So obviously easements are the most restrictive. The second most restrictive is the floodplain. So
make it a little bit bigger. Can you make that a little bit bigger, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That good enough for you?
That's better right there.
Stay with the yellow, Justin. Let's work from back to front.
So the yellow is the wetland buffer. So not the wetlands themselves, the wetland buffer. So outside of the wetlands, outside of the floodplain, anything that's within the 100-foot buffer that is not covered by another natural resource on site is delineated and shaded in that canary yellow as Mr. Murphy described previously. So you have it in the back of the property and a portion in the front of the property as well.
And we're going to come back to the front of the property because that's where most of the activity is going to happen. But going for the back, so across the entire width of the rear, you show the yellow shaded wetland buffer area, correct? Now,
So-
in between the yellow and the pink, there is a very small triangular sliver of green and then light blue. Explain to everyone what those are.
So the green is wetlands. So because the wetlands are almost entirely covered by the floodplain area, we only are showing a small portion of wetlands. Here's the delineation, the wetland flag W-2, W2-2. That's our wetlands line. The floodplain and the easements cover most of the wetlands. So this is the only portion of our site that is wetlands not covered or not restricted by another natural resource or easement.
All right. What about the light blue?
The light blue and the dark blue, we'll work on both, is what's known as the floodplain. Now, Lower Makefield Township does not delineate between floodway and flood fringe, or your zone AE, which is the 100-year flood area. But we are showing the difference on this plan just for additional clarity. So the dark blue is the limit of the FEMA floodway. The light blue is your flood hazard area, so which is your flood fringe. And that is the area that could be covered by a 100-year storm, which has a 1% chance of occurring in any year. Still a natural resource by Lower Makefield Township standards. It extends to the 88 contour, which is the studied elevation of that flood zone. So if it floods, it gets up to elevation 88. That's why you'll see it following that contour front and back. And that is the light blue and the dark blue on this property.
Where did you obtain the limit of the FEMA floodway? Where did that come from?
So FEMA studied this stream, and there is a known base flood elevation of 88. So our survey was done, which was a field and topographic, which is a boundary location and topographic survey. The grades on this property were field verified by a survey. This is where the 88 contour hits this property. Therefore, that is the limit of the flood fringe, if we're going to use the correct term, but the flood hazard zone AE is what's known by FEMA.
Okay. Now, all those areas in the multicolors, yellow, pink, blue, green, light blue, you have separately tabulated each of those areas in the chart below this map, right? In the lower right-hand corner?
Correct.
Okay. So each of those areas you just described, you have calculated in acres or portions of acres, and you get to the total resource protection land, right?
Correct.
And you have that listed as 0.52 acres out of the total 0.87 acres, right?
Correct. So, and I'll walk it through. I know you're leading it, so I'll just walk it through. So the base site area, we already talked about the gross site area minus the easements got us down to 0.6 acres. That's subtracting the easements. Once you subtract the natural resources, and they're protected in different magnitudes and depending on the class, you have another 0.52 acres of resource protected land. That is land that is not available for us to do anything with on this property.
So what's left?
Yeah, what's left?
0.08 acres.
Show everybody below, right? Keep working down through that.
So you have your base site area of 0.6, which is what's left after you subtract the easements. You subtract the total land with resource restrictions, which is 0.52 acres. You're left with a net buildable area of 0.08. And if we go back up to the plan, that 0.08 acres is this white area that is not shaded by any natural resource on this property.
Now, I know we're going to look at the next slide shortly, but I think it's important to highlight for everybody now why we're on this particular plan, that you have identified right in the middle of the plan a 100-foot wetland buffer. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you measure that 100-foot buffer from the edge of what?
The edge of the delineated wetland. So as you'll see here, there's a wetland on the front and back of the stream.
Right.
Here's the wetland. We are 100-foot offset from that wetland is where that line gets set.
Okay.
And that's based on ground cover of the existing conditions on site. So based on ground cover, we have confirmed that a 100-foot wetland buffer is required.
Now, let's make it clear to everybody, the origin of the 100-foot wetland buffer, is that the same as the FEMA established limit of the floodway? Or what's the origin of the 100-foot or any feet of wetland buffer? Where does that come from?
Okay, so the wetland buffer itself, not the wetlands, the wetland buffer is strictly a township ordinance. DEP and FEMA do not require a wetland buffer. So that is a township requirement. We are not, the wetlands are on site. There's no disturbance to the wetlands. And if you're going to talk about the FEMA floodway and flood fringe, this is not, it's not delineated in the same way that is. So FEMA studies a stream and studies what's known as the base flood elevation. So during the flood stage, what elevation, based on the capacity of the channel of the stream, what elevation does that 100-year flood come to on the site? Because water seeks its same elevation, so it's consistent through the whole channel based on a cross-sectional analysis of that stream.
Is the 100-foot wetland buffer an objective standard, or is it subjective? How does one like you determine the width of the wetland buffer, assuming that it varies? Is that a fair assumption that it does vary based on certain site characteristics, or is it always 100 feet?
It does vary based on site characteristics, and the characteristics are the vegetation from the edge of the wetland. So the vegetation that exists within this 100-foot or this 50-foot or whatever we have, if it's thick meadow grass or if it's tall trees, whatever it may be, determines that subjective wetland buffer length or width in this case.
And typically, does that decision get made by the township engineer, township zoning officer, or EAC, or how does that, who tells you what the width of the buffer is as you're preparing a plan such as this?
It's somewhat of a collection of all of them. There's we did the field analysis for the wetlands, and our ecologist, based on the criteria, determined that it was a 100-foot wetland buffer. Township zoning officer also confirmed that it's a 100-foot wetland buffer. But yes, it is a subjectively determined criteria of natural resource protection.
So if the vegetation adjacent to the limit of the floodplain was heavier or thicker or taller, if there were trees, that could influence the width of the buffer?
Correct. The intent of the wetland buffer is just to preserve the quality, the water quality and ecology of the wetland itself. They don't want you to disturb too close to the buffer because you get treatment of stormwater as it flows over the buffer. The thicker the vegetation, the more treatment, the smaller the buffer needs to be.
Okay.
How does one prevent that vegetation or topography from being changed that would affect that buffer?
Correct.
How would that be? I mean, how's that? Can that be changed by someone to affect that buffer, make it wider or less or narrower? And right now you're basing it on the vegetation, and I assume some kind of slopes maybe in that area, and 100 foot was determined. And you said it was based on vegetation and so forth. Could that be changed easily by growth being destroyed or dying? Or how is it kept up?
I would go the other way. I would say that you could reduce the width of the buffer with additional plantings and trying to promote more vegetation closer to the stream. The 100 foot is the maximum the township will require. Most, somewhere you're in the range of either 50, 75, or 100 based on the vegetation. So the more trees, the more vegetation within that 50-foot limit of the wetlands, the less that buffer length needs to be.
Okay.
All right, now, so to summarize before we move to the next plan, the roughly triangular area in white in the upper corner is the 0.08 acres of the total site that isn't encumbered by natural resources, easements, wetland buffers, floodplain, flood fringe, or wetlands, right?
Correct.
Now, that's before we talk about what the building area is based on the application of the township ordinances reflecting those natural resources, right?
That's correct. There's no building setbacks or building envelope shown on this plan for a reason.
All right. Now, let's go to the next slide and explain to the board and the audience what we've done next.
Sure. So if you watch the screen, so we have right now, we were describing that unshaded area. So on the next slide, you'll see I shaded that area. That area shaded in red is exactly as we work through with the site capacity and the base site area calculations. That total unencumbered area is 0.08 acres, and it is identified here in that red shading.
And if you use square feet, we started out the night by saying the total square feet of the site was 37,915. Out of that 37,915, all we have left to work with is less than 3,700.
That's
So,
correct. Yep, correct.
right, 10% of the total site is a little less, is all we have left to work with, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, that red area, before we can do anything with it, we have to next apply the ordinances that establish various yards, but they're not measured from property lines in Lower Makefield, correct?
Correct.
Explain to the board what happens next if we're going to try to determine what area of this site we would have to build anything on.
So per township ordinance, 261.c
Right.
requires that all building setbacks be taken from the natural resources to be protected. So in our case, if we were to look at this plan, if this is the limit of natural resources to be protected, my rear yard setback would be offset of that existing resource to be protected. So it would be a 35-foot offset of that rear property line to this point. And if we were to do that on this plan, there would be.
What about the front yard?
The front yard setback is 40, well, sorry, let me back up 1 second here. The front yard setback is 30 feet.
Mm-hmm.
The rear yard setback is 45. So you have a 45-foot offset of the rear yard, a 35-foot offset of the front yard, and then you have side yards of 15 each. You're left with a negative building envelope. That means the rear yard overlaps the front yard and there's no envelope there.
Got it.
Got it.
That's what's left if you apply all of the restrictions within your ordinance and the existing easements on this property. This site has no building envelope.
So based on the application of all these ordinances, the site is effectively sterilized based on this plan and the testimony you've given so far.
That's correct.
Okay.
What I did on the next plan, and if we work through so it's actually a little bit easier if I full page. So that was what we had before. Now, if I were to apply, and this is one of the variances that we discussed, if we were to apply the building setbacks from the property lines, disregarding all natural resources, to just make this pretending there's no natural resources on this site to try to come up with some sort of building envelope. This is the total unencumbered area we would get by applying a 15-foot side yard setback, a 30-foot front yard setback, another 15-foot side yard setback, and then this just gets cut off at the natural resources for.
Right, because the 50 feet is or 40 feet is so far back, right?
Correct. So just for conversation, we're left with 0.01 acres or 441.
If we ignored the requirement that you measure yards from the edge of resources and just went from property lines, that's what you get.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's all this exhibit is showing.
Okay. Now, I think the next couple plans are going to be instructive. Let's talk about them one at a time and make sure everybody understands how we prepared each, because I think this gives everyone a good snapshot of the original plan, which is at the top, and the current proposed plan, which is at the bottom.
Correct. And I'll zoom in 1 minute, but I want to keep it extended for comparative purposes right at this point. So at the top, this was our original application that we were supposed to be on the March zoning hearing board.
March 16, yep.
March 16th. At the top, you'll see the proposed dwelling, or the dwelling that we were proposing, extended into the floodplain area, as shown here in the light blue. Now, this is the flood fringe, not the floodway shown in dark blue, but still extended into the floodplain.
Now, Justin, so we're clear for everybody, this slide, top and bottom, only references the proposed dwelling as it pertains to the floodplain. The next slide will talk about the wetlands and the wetland buffer, right?
Correct. Yeah. So all I'm showing on this slide, I'm not showing overlapping resources. This is just floodplain.
Right.
Because that was a source of opposition on the first application, and I want to show how we address those concerns with the new building layout. So you'll see that a portion of the building, the portion of the dwelling extended into that flood fringe area. We did have some, even though we were offsetting areas, and I won't get into that because it's no longer applicable, but we still showed an impact into the floodplain. If you'll look at the new application, and this is the application for tonight's hearing, you'll notice that the house is now smaller. We removed approximately 556 square foot smaller footprint, and it's entirely outside the floodplain area. I'll zoom in just so you can see the top, and we'll scroll down to the bottom, but you'll see that shaded blue is the impact that we had to the floodplain. If you move down here to the new application, hearing the concerns and trying to respect that flood hazard boundary and that flood fringe, we pulled the house entirely out of that area, reoriented the house, reshaped the house, and made it smaller. So absolutely zero impacts in that flood hazard area. And that is what we're showing by this exhibit here.
Now, I want to make sure that John Fenningham and Barb and Adam know that the version of the plan that you see today is slightly different than what I circulated to everybody yesterday afternoon, because the size of the proposed dwelling under the current application was mislabeled on yesterday's plan.
That's correct.
It was labeled as the same size as the original house, which is not accurate. What's on the screen tonight is accurate. It is 2,008 square feet, the first floor footprint. That includes the house and the garage, correct, Justin?
Correct. And that was a typo on my part. I apologize for that.
Right.
But the dwelling did get smaller, 556 square feet smaller between the original application to the application tonight.
Okay. Just a question of clarification. What's the identification number of this? And is it dated today, June 15th?
The exhibit is dated June 15th, and it's known as the floodplain exhibit.
Does it have an exhibit designation?
Should we do this as A8 because it's got the comparison of the two plans plus the updated square footage?
Great, thanks, Adam.
And Mr. Fenningham, I could circulate this to you after the meeting as well.
That's fine. Thanks, Justin.
I just want to clarify, the current size is 2,008 square feet, correct?
Yep.
Okay, good, because I thought Justin couldn't add after.
I don't know why.
Engineering sucks at
I'm
adding.
looking and I'm like, where's he saying 500 square feet less?
Engineers can't add, they can't spell, and a million other things they can't do. So.
But you all accepted me as an expert, so I mean, think about that.
I didn't.
Justin, just to confirm, it's a typo that you fixed. The building footprint did not change from what you see.
Matt, you're right. That's right.
That is absolutely correct. I apologize for the typo.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. And the next slide focuses on not the floodplain, but the wetlands, right?
Correct. So you'll see the colors again that have been carried through these exhibits. The green is the delineated wetlands. The yellow is the 100-foot wetland buffer. So just so you discern between the two of them. What we are proposing, let's start at the beginning. So original application, the house was in the floodplain and it was also in the wetland buffer. We were proposing an area of impact of approximately 4667 square feet, which is 0.1 acres of that buffer, encroaching at its nearest point to approximately 35 feet off of the wetland. As part of the new application, respecting the wetland buffer to the best of our abilities while still developing the lot, we significantly reduced the impact into the wetland buffer. Again, trying to respect somewhat of the yards applicable to the R2 district. We're holding a 30-foot front yard. We obviously don't want to be that much closer. Plus, there's existing overhead utility poles, which we're trying to respect as well. So the area of impact, again, outside the floodplain, just inside the wetland buffer. And I spoke earlier about the length of the buffer being an important component to the ecology and to the main intent of a buffer is basically to preserve the ecology of a wetland. And we are proposing no closer than 53 feet at the closest point to that wetland buffer. So it's obviously that's at its closest point, but as you work its way around, I don't have a measurement on this here, but that's probably in like the 85 range of total wetland buffer length.
So you're encroaching into the wetland buffer at least 47 feet down there at the bottom of that.
At its deepest point, Tony, yes.
At its deepest point, correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, and I just want to make clear that it's a buffer, and I said the buffer is strictly a township ordinance, and it's not, we're not touching the wetland themselves, and we're still maintaining a sizable buffer throughout the whole entire property.
Okay. Any other relevant info you want to share with the board on either of the two plans, the comparative plans with the original application and house siting and this one?
No, I think that's pretty clear. We'll note that we talked about the easements earlier and the riprap apron and the storm conveyance. You'll see it, I think, clearest on this plan because there's a lot of things turned off. You'll see the riprap apron. There's a storm sewer conveyance system that comes from inlets in the road down our driveway, discharging into this existing stream, all existing within an easement, existing within our property.
And we're going to talk about that on the next slide.
Yeah, it's clear on this plan, so I just wanted to point it out so everyone could see it.
When you talk about, don't talk about engineering speak. When you talk about the storm conveyance system, you're talking about an existing storm sewer piping that exists, that extends from Woodland down the proposed driveway to the daylighted area of riprap, right?
Correct. That is correct.
An existing storm sewer pipe.
That is correct, and I will show it. It's shown very clearly on this plan as well. You'll see. This is, I mean, I'm assuming these easements are all constructed so that this could happen. So the development of this whole subdivision back in the 50s and 75 could occur. You have 3 inlets in the road connecting to one inlet and to another inlet in the road, all being conveyed through a 32-inch pipe to an existing riprap, which is just a stone energy dissipator on the edge of the stream. All of that exists today. So I just want to be clear about that as we work through the rest of these exhibits.
Okay.
That's all underneath the pole of the flag lot of the flag.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct. All right, Justin, let's look at the next exhibit and we'll talk about, go back one for the stormwater.
Okay, that's actually forward one. So I'll go to this one first.
Are these all together, or does the one that Justin just testified about, is that part of A8, or is that going to be A9?
I think the issue, Mr. Flyer, was that we circulated an exhibit package before the meeting, which had the zoning hearing board, had a bunch of exhibits in there for this hearing, and it had the floodplain exhibit, it had the wetland exhibit, it has this stormwater management exhibit, all within a single document. But I think for your purposes, we might want to mark them all separately, just so.
Okay, so the one you just testified that of the stormwater old and new.
Nope, we didn't get that.
That one. That's
the wetland one.
That's wetland. That's the wetland exhibit.
I'm sorry, the wetlands. That could be A9.
A9, that works.
Okay.
And what about the floodplain exhibit, the one before that?
We made it A.
That was A8.
Okay.
And then
the next one will be A10, and that's what we should refer to, Justin, as the stormwater exhibit, if you want.
Do you want to talk about the alternate first, Ed, the alternate wetland exhibit first to the 50-foot buffer? Or you want to come back to that?
No, go ahead. Might as well. So let's talk about that. So this is the alternate wetland plan.
Sure. So we talked, again, this is with the 100-foot wetland buffer. We already talked about this.
Right.
As an alternate, because I know the question may come up about it being subjective criteria. So if we were to apply a 50-foot wetland buffer onto this property. That's 50-foot offset off of the edge of wetlands, similar to how we did the 100-foot offset. The house would be entirely outside of that wetland buffer. Just a point of reference, just so you see how we arrived at the location of this house, the placement of this house, trying to respect, obviously, the floodplain and the wetland buffer to the best of our abilities. That's, just want to present this to the board just so you guys can see. And then even if we were to do this and apply the 50-foot wetland buffer, this red area that you see here is our building envelope. So 50-foot, 15-foot side yard, 30-foot front yard, and a 45-foot rear yard setback taken from the edge of wetlands. You're still not left with a buildable area.
So A11, the alternate or the 50-foot wide wetland buffer plan shows a plan that's entirely out of the floodplain and the flood fringe, right? The zone AE, right? And it respects a minimum 50-foot wetland buffer from the edge of the wetlands, the delineated wetlands, and gives the opportunity to have a deck off the back of the house.
Correct.
Okay.
Ed, is that A10 or A11?
A10, John, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, A11, Justin, will mark as the stormwater conveyance plan or the stormwater routing plan.
Yes, sir. All right, so Exhibit A11.
Blow that up so everybody can see it.
I'm
Because
on.
this has a number of different elements to it, aside from just stormwater. It also, it appears to show some additional new plantings. And you can explain when we get there what the significance of that is.
Sure, and it was previously noted that Exhibit A3 was the stormwater calculations and impervious coverage summary that was previously submitted.
Right.
This plan corresponds to those calculations. So this shows you how we are providing stormwater management for this application. So as part of this application, we're required to, and it's based off of, and I can work through the impervious calculation, but we're proposing impervious of 4,655 square feet of proposed impervious surface.
That includes driveway and house.
Driveway, house, patios, everything that you see on this plan that is known as an existing, a proposed impervious surface gets accounted for in the impervious surface breakdown. And we are required to provide stormwater management for that impervious surface.
Right.
The next part of that exhibit, A3, is the stormwater management. And this is for small projects proposing less than 5,000 square foot of new impervious, which we are doing. Based on the calculations, and we can go through the methodology, but it's basically 2 inches of rainfall over the impervious surface needs to be treated and infiltrated into the ground to recharge the aquifer and to take care of water quality on the site. We are required to provide 767 cubic feet of stormwater volume on this project. Now, I'm going to work through what we're proposing by this plan, but the end result is that we are proposing 1,516 cubic feet of stormwater volume control. So that's 198%, or almost 2 times what we're required to propose per your ordinance is being proposed by this application. So again, I'm showing you how we're trying to respect the floodplain. We're trying to respect the wetlands. We're also trying to respect the stormwater by going over and above by almost 2 times the ordinance requirement of stormwater controls on this property.
And what are the stormwater controls, Justin, and where are they located?
Sure. So the first and the biggest component of our stormwater management control is a proposed rain garden in the front of the property. Now, it's not required, but we did so, and we went outside and we did infiltration testing to confirm that infiltration rates could be obtained in this area.
So that's in the minimum front yard of this house.
It's in the minimum front yard of this house. It's in the only area pretty much available to stormwater management outside of a natural resource.
Okay.
So it is in the front yard of this house. We do have infiltration rates. The entire roof will be conveyed to that rain garden.
Including the backside roof, it's not going to flow out the back into the wetland. It's going to
Correct.
go forward.
The entire roof. So we're going to be piping the roof layers around the building to the rain garden, where it's going to go through a planted soil media an amended soil media, which is basically a sand soil mixture, which provides water quality, stormwater detention, and rate control, which is something that we're not required to do in this district because we're less than 5,000 square feet, but we are providing.
How are you going to execute that guidance of the water into the rain garden? What are they, underground drains or?
Yeah, so basically, I'm sorry, so the roof, the gutters are going to be conveyed into downspouts. The downspouts are going to be piped underground to the rain garden. We're also proposing potentially a rain barrel on the corner of the building, which could be used as capture and reuse, whether it's for irrigation on this property of existing, proposed landscaping. This is in addition to the rain garden, but the entire roof is going to be conveyed to this rain garden in the front yard of the property. Now that rain garden has the capacity to infiltrate and control up to the 5-year, up to the 10-year, 24-hour storm. Anything in excess of that will be detained and slowly released by an outlet control structure into the existing stormwater conveyance system, which is contained within an existing easement, to an existing riprap apron.
All on our lot, all on this lot.
Everything is within our lot, everything is existing and conveyed to the stream. Now, I'm saying in excess of the 100 years, the 10-year storm gets conveyed out of this basin. The 100-year storm, which is the maximum storm which we as engineers designed to for large projects. And this is, again, peak rate control is not a requirement of stormwater for this application. We're doing it anyway. For the 100-year storm, we're talking about an increase in peak rates by 0.2 CFS. That is basically nothing. If you want to look at the flow in Silver Creek, you're talking in the range of 700 CFS during the 100-year storm event. So again, peak rate control is not a requirement. We're doing it anyway with the rain garden. We're also proposing, which will soak up additional stormwater on the site, evergreen trees, buffer plantings. This is adjacent to the McDonald property. This is going to buffer. I know there was a concern about the pool area. These trees are going to be staggered in the assortment, in the arrangement shown here. Additional stormwater credit control for that, and additional deciduous trees in the canopy here, which is going to enhance the buffer of the wetlands and also provide additional stormwater management control. Lastly, it's another BMP by the PA BMP manual, disconnecting impervious area. The BMP manual, which is our resource for water quality and stormwater design in Pennsylvania, doesn't like when impervious surfaces run right into a stream. So they don't like us piping right into a stream. It gets hot, it gets contaminated. They prefer that the stormwater off of impervious surface go through some sort of filtration device and run over land before getting to the stream, similar to a wetland buffer. So the driveway we're proposing to disconnect, we're not going to capture it. It's going to run through a river stone apron before it goes over land through the wetland buffer and slowly gets conveyed into the stream. All of these proposed best management practices, which are stormwater management controls, collectively provide what I already noted as 1,516 cubic feet of runoff volume controlled on this application. Now, we are only required to do 767. That's just take that 767 cubic feet, infiltrate it into the ground, and we meet the stormwater ordinance.
So that 1,500 feet is the deciduous trees, the extra trees at the top, and the little conveyance going into the storm drain to the riprap.
Correct, and that is all part of Exhibit A3. We break down how we get to that number. But again, I'm trying to hammer home the fact that we're trying to go over and beyond on what's required.
I see that.
And we're not just trying to meet the ordinance. We're trying to. Mr. Deck is trying to be a good resident, a good steward of the land here, and he's agreeing to go over 200% of the stormwater controls required.
All those calculations to support what you just talked about are shown on Exhibit A3 and as graphically shown on Exhibit A11, which you just testified to.
So that overage on the rain garden goes, if you look down where it goes to the bottom of the plan, goes into an existing storm drain? Or is that what that is there? That inlet?
That's all part of it right now.
Does that have the capacity to absorb that extra water?
It does. So that inlet exists today. So there's already,
I got that.
So there's already storm flow getting into that inlet, which we are going to be taking out of that inlet. And just, the other thing too is we're changing the peaks too. So we're taking some of the storm surge that's going through, we're going to be taking out by providing stormwater management by way of a rain garden. So it's over and beyond what's required. And we're also providing that peak rate control, which I know is going to be a benefit to anyone concerned with the storm surge in Silver Creek. And again, the smaller storms, which is the vast majority of the storms which we encounter in this area, the 1, 2, 5, 10-year storm event, 100% detained within the rain garden. That means nothing is getting to the stream. And today there is runoff getting over land to the stream. So we're actually improving conditions during the lower storms, which is, again, over and beyond what is necessary of this application.
And the higher storms would require the rest, the trees, the shrubs in the back.
Again, there is no requirement for those.
Well, I know, but to stake your claim that you're doing overflow, it does.
Correct. So yeah, I'll make the point that there is no requirement. We are providing that capacity on this site by this application to do that.
Okay.
And Ed, I think that's it for this exhibit. And I think there's one more exhibit you want to show.
One more exhibit we want to just show everybody, right?
We'll just call A12.
Yep.
And this will be, I'll get the exact name for everyone here. This is an aerial exhibit. So A12, known as the aerial exhibit, plan date 6/15/21. This is an overlay.
Before everybody looks at this, PIQ stands for property in question, right?
That's correct. So the property in question is denoted here by that thicker white line.
Yeah.
You'll see the thinner dashed white line. That's the flag lot that we are proposing to consolidate.
Yep.
This is an exact overlay of our proposed house on the lot on an aerial footage that was taken this year. So this is a new aerial photo. You'll see, I know Mr. Fenningham's on here for the McDonald property. That's up here in this quadrant with the pool right here. The
other house right there.
Yes, thank you, right there. And and then here's our access off of the road right here. And again, Edgewood Road is approximately 600 feet right at the top of the page right here. But you'll see on this plan, what we're trying to show you is that the house proposed is one, trying to stay as far away from the stream as possible. And two, consistent in size, if not maybe smaller than the surrounding properties in this area.
Trying to demonstrate the house is consistent with the character of the neighborhood. It's not overly large as it relates to any of the existing neighbors. And I think a rooftop view typically is a good tool to show everybody that what it looks like. I think it fits well with all the other existing rooftops that you see. Yeah. And that house that we're depicting, and it's clearly shown, includes the garage, which is at the end of it. So it's not all living space there. You have a garage there as well.
Correct. And Ed, that pretty much concludes these exhibits unless you want to take it any further.
Nope, I think I'm good.
Ed, could I, because you did supply a revised drawing and you have reduced your requested variances, could I have you enter what the variances you're requesting are for the record?
Sure. And I think if we go to the first exhibit, I will, and Justin, I'll summarize them and we can talk about each one individually. The first one is a variance from section 261C to allow setbacks from natural resources to be measured from lot lines and not from the edge of those resources. I think we already talked about the fact that if we had to measure everything from the edge of the resources, we would have a negative building envelope and there would be no opportunity to build a home at all. Number two, and Justin, if you want to speak to this, a variance from section 251B1B to permit a 10% temporary disturbance of the flood fringe. Explain that, Justin. We haven't talked about that. So you should probably highlight where that circumstance arises on the plan.
Sure. And this is more of a formality than actually a requirement here, because we are building, and I'll flip to the exhibit A8 in a minute just to show you, because we're building right up to the flood fringe, construction activities are going to require some level of staging and maybe some disturbance temporarily within that area to construct the house. So to be
Go to the
proactive.
exhibit. I'll have the variances. Just go to the exhibit if you would.
Sure. This is the best one here. So because obviously the deck and the corners of the house, I mean, we're 5-10 feet off of the flood fringe area. We're not proposing to change the grading by any circumstance within this area. And that is the intent of the flood hazard boundary area, that flood stage being elevation 88. We're not proposing a permanent change to that elevation. We're just being proactive in saying, for construction activities, we are going to be required to disturb or at least be in that area to construct it temporarily. And that's all that is. It's a temporary disturbance of the floodplain, not a permanent change whatsoever.
All right, the third variance, go to the A9, Dustin, because that's the wetland one. And the third variance deals with a request to permit a 22% disturbance of the wetland buffer.
There you go. So it's delineated here with the darker, I'll call it yellow. That's what I'm seeing on the screen. We're proposing to disturb a permanent disturbance of that area for the house.
That's assuming that it's a 100-foot wetland buffer. If the wetland buffer is reduced to 50 feet, that variance goes away.
That's correct.
Okay. And then the last variance deals with the flag lot where the pole of the flag is not 25 feet, but 18 feet, which is the existing condition.
Again, it's basically an existing nonconformity that this exists. It's just because we're consolidating the house, consolidating the lots into quote unquote a flag lot now. The flag pole as it exists today is a nonconformity with your ordinance, but because of the subdivision and consolidation, we are now creating that variance that we need to ask for relief of.
Right. So we're talking about a flag pole of 18 feet instead of 25. Depending on the width of the wetland buffer, we may not need any variance. If it's 50, if it's 100, we need 22%. A temporary interim variance to encroach into the flood fringe to build the deck. And then the last one would be not to have to measure setbacks from the edge of natural resources. That's what we're down to. And that's it. I don't have any other questions for Justin. I'll defer to the board, Barb and John, if they want to talk about anything tonight. I understand John doesn't want to. I don't know about Barb, if she wants to or not. If she wants to defer questioning until later, that's her choice.
Well, whatever the board wishes to do. I don't know if you want to bring in all of the residents, how you want to handle it. I can go either way.
Do we want to, yeah, no, Barb, you want to cross-examine or?
I mean, I have questions, but if you want me to hold off till the next hearing, I can do that as well.
Guys, I mean, I don't have no problem with her doing it tonight.
Okay.
And we got,
See, my only concern is I think there were 23 people. How late do you intend to go? And do you intend, Tony, to?
oh, I think we should stick with the 10 o'clock.
Okay,
I really wasn't paying attention. Yeah, it's 10 after 9. Oh, well, we got 40 minutes. That's like 50 minutes.
I mean, I'd be willing to wait until the next hearing in order to allow those residents that are here, because I'm sure they've showed up each of the other prior times, to maybe voice their opinions, and then we can go forward from that.
I think that's a good idea.
I think that's fine with me. I'm okay with that.
that would be my recommendation.
Okay, Pam, I think it's great. Matt, you okay with that?
I like that idea. I'd
All
rather
right,
have
so too.
those here are the people who want to speak.
James, no problem?
Totally okay.
Okay. All right. All right, where are we going from here? Do we want to bring in any public comment now, or we want to, I mean, we got him here. Adam?
Yeah, we can bring one in
I mean,
one at a time. They can.
I mean, I think we should, we got time.
Yep.
All right. our facilitator, if he wants to bring somebody in, and they've been
Yep,
waiting.
we'll bring in Nancy for public comment now.
I mean, it's fair.
Nancy is in for public comment. You can press *6 to unmute. Nancy, you can press *6 to unmute.
Nancy, are you there? Can we bring somebody else in? And
All right, we'll bring in a new one now.
Can the facilitator unmute her?
it's her. She has to unmute.
Howard is now in. Howard, you can press *6 to unmute.
Is Pam right? Is it the facilitator?
We can't unmute them. They need to
That's what I
unmute
thought,
themselves.
yeah. Okay. And I assume they can hear you.
Yeah, they should be able to hear us. They are in the room with us. Howard, you can press *6 to unmute.
He's
Okay,
good.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
My name is Howard. I am the president of the Makefield Lakes Community Association, which is the community around Silver Lake, the two lakes there that this Silver Creek feeds. And we currently have issues with the lake filling in with all the, anytime it rains, it brings the water and silt down from the stream, and the lake is starting to fill in. It also causes some erosion, and our community is approximately 90 families in and around the two lakes, and as a board we are strongly against this proposal because it's just going to further cause more problems and in a faster time period. And we think the township, when they created the 100-foot wetland buffer, did it with good reasons. And we don't think it's a good idea to be building within that 100-foot wetland buffer.
And I appreciate your comment. And according to the engineers, the way they're doing it, there will be no water heading that way into the stream with the what they are doing as far as the trees and the rain the rain garden. Do you think that that's not correct? Is that your opinion that is not correct?
Did we have him sworn in?
Oh, you know what? I don't think we did. I don't think we did. I'm sorry, Howard. You need to be sworn in.
Okay.
Howard, you solemnly swear the testimony you just gave is true, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Howard, could you tell me your last name and spell it for me, please?
Say that again.
Just say your last name and spell it for me, please.
My name is Howard Hunter, Hunter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, their treatment will take some time to develop and be able to hold all that. And the driveway they're going to build, I know they have good intentions, but I don't think it's going to, I don't quite agree that it's going to just do everything for years, actually. And so it's just going to create more problems. I said there's a problem now with stormwater running into the stream, and it's just going to create more.
Okay. I appreciate your comment.
Okay, that's it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I appreciate it. Let's bring somebody else in.
Bringing in Martin now.
Martin, you need to come in and be sworn in.
Martin, you can press *6 to unmute.
Martin, do you hear us?
Press *6 to unmute so we can hear you.
Mr. Chairman, are we able to ask for addresses too as they come in?
Yeah, we could, yes, because I see your concern. Sure. Let's go to the next person.
All right, bringing in Sarah now.
Sarah? Sarah, do you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Sarah, you have to give your full name and be sworn in and your address.
Certainly. My name is Sarah Spengler Campanella. I live at 29 Green Ridge Road.
Okay, hold on, let Bill.
Sarah, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Sarah, can you please mute whatever you're listening to the meeting with in the background?
I do have some concern that there is no environmental impact study considering the level of encroachment on the wetlands buffer and the fact that the property does back to Silver Creek, which, as Howard mentioned, does flow down into Silver Lake. And Silver Lake already has a silt buildup issue. One of my concerns about the lack of environmental impact study is how this will impact the wildlife in the area that's in that wetlands area and the lake itself.
Sarah, did you give Bill your address?
I'm sorry?
You need to give Bill your address.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had
Maybe you
29
did. I don't know.
Green Ridge Road.
Okay. I'm sorry. My apologies.
So anyway, my feeling is that without any kind of an environmental impact study that will give a better picture of any potential impacts or consequences to both wildlife and the lake, a key piece is missing for you to make an informed decision. And that's all.
Thank you, Sarah, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's bring in the next person.
Sean, you're now in the room. You can press *6 to unmute.
Yes, this is Sean Wagner. Can you hear me?
Yes, Sean, give him your address.
Yes, 564 Countess Drive.
Okay, Bill, will you swear him in?
Sean, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
My property is abuts to Silver Creek. I've lived here 23 years, and my property is next to South Drive. That's where Silver Creek crosses. And I've sent a photo of my property from a recent flood. And I guess my concern, and I'd urge the board to consider, that there have been many more frequent medium and large floods in recent years. In the time I've been here, I've witnessed Hurricane Floyd, Emily, Sandy, and many other smaller but fairly scary storms that have caused the kind of damage that is in the photo that I did share with Ms. McVan and Mr. Majewski. What I'm concerned about is that this has escalated in recent years, and there have been a number of disturbances in the neighborhood to the creek bed, including a neighbor on South Drive, which unfortunately the zoning board has not detected or enforced. So I urge the zoning hearing board to deny this request and protect the creek bed from further disturbance and property owners from flood damage going forward.
Adam, did you mark the exhibits that were mailed or mark as exhibits, excuse me, his photos? I think there were a couple letters that I saw.
Yeah, we generally don't mark them unless people appear and present them to the board. That's just been our practice.
And we haven't seen them.
Okay. Well, I think what I'd like to point out is that the water that you see there that's encroached on my yard is from what I think probably, if the engineer knew the storm date, would call probably a medium storm. What I'm concerned about is that we're seeing more and more of these, and that I think probably what the zoning ordinances were set up for were 50 and 100-year floods, and we've had several extremely large, and I think they would probably even admit 50 and 100-year floods in recent years. And I think all bets are off as far as what we can count on from even something like a rain creek or a rain garden. And my concern is that the assumptions in our ordinances and in the plans submitted by the engineer may be even dated at this point. And my concern is that we put not only wildlife at risk, but also property. And as a homeowner that is upstream from the proposed property or proposed building, I want to express my strong opposition to this.
Mr. Wagner, I'm looking at, so you sent a video. I think you sent it today, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. When was the video taken?
I believe it was 2018.
That was the 2-second video you sent us. I did see it.
Yes, that's right. Yep. And I have to tell you, every time we get a significant rain, that creek comes up, and it's not just my property, it's other properties. My home is outside of the floodplain and outside of the barrier, the wetlands barrier. But my concern is that even with those kinds of assumptions, we see the creek rising the way it is. And that's because of, I think, continued disturbances as well as weather changes, right? There have been significant weather changes in the last 23 years I've been here, I admit that. But my concern is that we not be aggressive and push these properties beyond what they can handle.
Mr. Tony, I think in the interest, because we've seen it, we would have to forward this to Mr. Murphy and all the other parties.
Yeah, Jim, you can do a share screen and
sure.
play it, and we can mark it.
Okay.
Did you share the video you're talking about?
Yeah, we can show the video that was submitted. He is here to testify.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to provide the date if I can find it.
Adam, this is John here. If the board members, since the board members have seen the video and read some letters, I would request they be made part of the record and identified.
Well, this one, we certainly can, since he's here, but generally speaking, if they're not here to do it, we don't make it part of the record because it's not being, they're not here to authenticate it or do anything else.
He doesn't even know what the date of it is. So what's the relevance? I think it's a waste of time. I don't think it belongs part of the record.
Well, we said 2018, but Adam, I agree with what you said.
He has no idea when it was.
And
yes, I do. I can produce it. I object to your attitude, sir. I've listened to you for an hour and a half.
All right. Let's keep it nice.
Do you want me to show, because I have the ability to share the screen, his relationship to the property, because he did mention upstream, so I think that's an important part.
I'm probably 8 houses away. I'm not abutting, but I'm certainly affected. Upstream. That's right.
Right.
I think the point to make with a lot of the testimony here too is a lot of the developments that surround this property were constructed in the 70s and the 50s with absolutely zero stormwater management on any of the sites on this property. So what we are proposing to do is bring a new development in here complying with the new stormwater regulations, which shouldn't be taken lightly. And I think a lot of these agencies, especially the Silver Lake and all those, would benefit from going door to door and going to some of these older houses and trying to promote awareness of some of the stormwater concerns and addressing some of the runoff off of these older properties, which, as Mr. Wagner already mentioned, he is upstream of this property. So anything that is constructed downstream of his site is going to have no impact on him. If anything, we're going to be improving by taking some of the runoff from upstream out of the watershed by our application. I think it gets lost here when everyone looks at the last one to come into a community that's already been built out and likes to point their fingers at, they're building and they're going to impact the flood stage. That's not the case. I've already testified that we're going to be removing stormwater from there. And I think if there is a concern about Silver Lake, awareness needs to be regional, and that's regional based on the drainage area contributing to Silver Lake. And Mr. Deck coming in here is already taking the first step to do that. So let's just remember that these developments built in the 50s did not have the stormwater management controls that we are proposing today with new applications, nor did a lot of the extracurricular activities that, as I'm looking at this area that I'm sure were not permitted, had stormwater controls. And all of that is contributing to what is known now as the degradation of Silver Creek, and the Lakewood Lakes Community Association has already testified to. But I think we need to put it in context of how old this community is and really where the problem lies.
Any other comment?
I just think that there hasn't been a ruling, Tony, on whether or not the video was going to be part of the record. I think we've had somebody request
I
it.
saw the video. I didn't see anything special in it. If it's okay to put it in there, I don't object to it, but Mr. Murphy seems to. I don't know where it is. There is a timestamp issue. I got that part.
I'll note my objection, and the board and Adam will make a ruling on whether it's admissible or not. I'll just note my objection for the record.
Fair enough. That'll be okay. Pam, that okay with you?
Yeah, I think, Anthony, I think it's your decision.
I don't
Determine whether or not to
if I have to
place.
make a decision on it, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's just not confirmed to me, and it gotta be fair with everybody.
Well, I just think it's,
Well, the way he presented it, there is no time. I don't know where that, I can't. I just don't feel that I can say that it's real. I don't know. Maybe it is, but without.
He can testify that he took the video and where the video was taken. The issue, and I think part of Mr. Murphy's objection, is that he cannot testify today about when that was taken.
well, he testified it was 2018. He didn't, and that's
Correct,
But isn't that for cross-examination, either by Mr. Murphy or someone else or the board? I mean, that's just goes to the weight of the evidence, not whether or not
No,
the evidence
if
is.
you have to authenticate evidence to admit evidence.
Well, he admitted that, I mean, he testified that he took it.
Correct, and he can state that it accurately portrays, what it looked like after, a storm. But you can still have an objection to admitting it due to the fact that it's one of 365 days in the year.
I say no, but.
So then let's move on.
Let's move on. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, he's off.
Oh, he's gone? Okay, well, let's bring the next person in.
I mean, whether you accept the video or not, he still testified that there are flooding issues.
Yeah.
So whether you see a video or not.
The video to me didn't seem, I don't know, I just don't say it.
I just thought it was respectful to the parties because we've seen it. So I just wanted to throw it out there to either of the attorneys or the township, whether or not they wanted a copy of it or not, because it was already provided to us.
Thank you, Pam.
If the township wants a copy of it, Barb
I got a copy of it, but I couldn't play it to view it. It wouldn't go through my.
Let's make sure Barb gets a copy of that video.
Could I request a copy, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
It's not going to be part of the record. I don't care.
Yeah, no, I don't see any problem with giving them a copy if it's not part of the record. If you want to look at it, feel free.
Look at it.
I saw it. I didn't show me anything other than a lot of water at some unspecified time.
I can forward it to the parties.
Thank you.
Although actually I had trouble playing it too on my computer.
I played it right on the phone. It worked great. But it
So
is
did
only
I,
only
Tony.
2 seconds. I'm not just trying to be fair here. I didn't really see a stamp. I don't know when it was. I got it. He's not lying. He took a picture of it. If you want a copy of it, send Barb a copy. Send John a copy.
I had a copy. Could
Do you have a copy, Ed? You want to call? Send it.
Sure. Great. I'll play it on my phone.
There you go.
What I did.
I learned how
You
to-
only got a second and a half.
There you go.
Do we have more people?
Yes.
Yep, bringing in Alex now. Alex is in. Alex, you can hit *6 to unmute.
Alex, you with us? Alex?
Got to press *6.
All right, well, if Alex is not there, let's move on to the next person.
All right, Patty is in. Patty, you can hit *6 to unmute.
Patty, it seems to get an awful lot of people can't get in. What's going on here? Is it their end?
I think they're in, but they're stepping away from their phone.
It could be. I know. I can't help that, Matt.
I know.
I haven't stepped away from this computer. Move to the next person.
All right, we're bringing Peter in now.
Peter, *6. No. Peter.
Good evening. This
Peter,
is
hold on a
Peter
second.
Dodds.
Give your name to Bill and your address.
Peter Dodds. Last name is D as in David, O as in Oscar, D as in David, D as in David, S as in Sam. I live at 843 Edgewood Road.
Okay, Peter. He's going to swear you in now.
Peter, do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening. I am an adjacent resident to the subject property. The rear southeast corner of my property abuts the subject property by about 116 feet, and then proceeds down towards Edgewood Road, where Silver Creek then runs on both sides of my property for probably maybe another 150 feet. Or maybe 200 feet. I've lived here in excess of 25 years and just seen continual deterioration of the creek. I understand in terms of that supposedly this site development will enhance the existing runoff, but as the downstream owner, I don't see any improvement, and it's kind of a joke that there's a maintenance easement there, because in 27 years I've never seen anyone maintain the creek. It only continues to worsen, and as the owner that continuously has to spend money on site cleanup, tree removal as a result of the banks deteriorating and the excess water coming through the site, it's a real joke as to how the township is managing this Silver Creek. I can say that a number of years ago, when Toll Brothers was building up across from Edgewood Road at Afton, I was complaining to the town, and they had sent engineers at one point and put monuments on the side of our property to measure the expansion of the creek. Those monuments are now in the creek bed, no longer. I used to be able to walk 5 feet around those monuments in a radius. So there's been significant damage to the creek. It continues to get worse every year. It doesn't take much of a storm at all for the creek to rise above the banks. And many times the creek is running, 15 to 20 yards in excess of the banks on either side. So, I strongly oppose any development that would potentially have any risk of further water going into this. And I understand that. Go ahead.
Do you think there's a potential that this development will have a further degradation on that downstream, in your opinion?
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. I think it'll have a further impact on downstream. I think it has further impact. If I look to the rear of my property right now, a number of wild habitat there, whether it be red-tailed fox or deers, or you see owls and so forth around there. I think it's like a little nice natural habitat back there, which people are living, which the animals are all grazing and living in.
The other thing I must say I find objectionable in terms of the presentation. I realize this is a separate, or these are two separate tax lots, but and I realize they're owned, or it is mentioned that they are owned by the person that currently lives on Woodland Lane. But I think the intent, as they describe this as a separate lot, is somewhat misleading. The reality of this is just the backyard of the house in front of it. And I think probably the property owner that acquired the house initially, that was the bargain they negotiated for, or the people prior to them, that they had this beautiful wooded backyard. I just think this is kind of just exploiting the monetization of trying to develop a wetlands lot. And that's my opinion.
Okay, appreciate that opinion. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bringing the next caller.
Helene is in the room now. Helene, you can press *6 to unmute.
Helene?
Helene, you can press *6 to unmute.
All right, move to the next one.
Ed is in the room now. Ed, you can press *6 to unmute.
Ed, are you with us? *6, got to unmute. I think Matt may be right. He probably fell asleep with the phone on the shoulder. All right.
Walk away.
Yeah, I understand. But what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, no, I know.
We got the next meeting to do
I'd like to
something.
hear from them, but
I would too. I want to hear from everybody, not everybody. But in the interest of the meeting, moving on, I had no choice. Bring in the next guy.
All right, David is now in the room. David, you can press *6 to unmute.
Wow. That's unfortunate.
I'm wondering if some of them bailed when they heard there's going to be a continuance.
They might have.
yeah, but if that's the case, then if they hung up, then they wouldn't even be in the room.
That's what I think.
So I think what's happening is they're listening to what's going on. They're walking away, doing other stuff, and then we bring them in.
It's possible. Well, they'll still have a chance on the next meeting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best we can do. And I think Matt's probably right. Let's try the next guy. Still got 20 minutes. They can come in.
All right, Matthew is in the room now. Matthew, you can press *6 to unmute.
All right. Well, we're going to have to move on.
That was our last public caller.
That was 23 people?
A few dropped out during the meeting.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So at this point now, we want to look at what? A continuance here, or what are we looking for here now? Everybody's got public comment. But at this point, we're going to, who's asking for the continuance?
I think Mr. Fenningham already did, Tony, and I think based on the conversation from a couple hours ago, it sounds as if the board is inclined to grant the continuance until Tuesday evening, August 3rd.
He mentioned that he was going to, but I don't know if he formally did.
I think he did.
Okay.
A couple hours ago. Hey, he's back. So
Yeah, I'm sorry, took a
Make
bad.
it formal. Make it formal. Go ahead and ask.
Yeah, thank you. I'll make a request for continuance to August. Now, McDonald's is party status participants to cross-examine Justin, and thereafter cross-examine other applicant witnesses, and then to present opposition evidence.
And this is for the August 3rd meeting, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. I'll ask the board.
Tony,
Yes.
I did receive an email from one of the people who's on the call, and they said that *6 was not working to unmute.
Oh,
So it
really?
may have been a technical difficulty that we may have to pick up in the next meeting.
Yes.
With
Is there any way
public
we can
comment.
do that with those folks? We can let them know that? Is there any way we can do that? I mean, I don't know if we have the technology.
Imagine they're still watching if that's the
I was
case.
gonna say, is the person still on, Jim?
Well, I'll let people know that.
Just let them know that the next meeting, then we'll figure out this *6 thing. Is these everybody on phones that are doing this? Or is that what they're all doing on their own phone? I assume they're all on the phones doing this?
Yeah, these were all phone callers.
They can do Zoom as well, which.
We should try to encourage that if we can. That seems to work better. Maybe they don't want to be seen. I don't know. All right. Well, that being said, let's make a motion to approve the continuance to August 3rd. Anybody?
I'll make a motion.
I'm sorry, Pam?
I was gonna say so moved, but I think Matt did.
We did. I'll ask for a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Being no discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of the continuance to August 3rd, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say aye. Well, nobody's opposed, the motion carries. Continue to August 3rd.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Night,
Good night.
thanks.
Thank you, guys, everybody.
Good
Thanks
night.
to everybody keeping their cool. Thank you. All
Be
right.
on the meeting?
We do have the matter of, we have a meeting regularly scheduled for July 6th. However, we do not have any applications for that night. So you could cancel that if you're so inclined.
Which day is this?
July 6th.
Yes, oh yes, we want to do that. Yeah. We have the last hour.
Hey,
Let's make
hey
a
guys,
motion.
I'm just trying to get the lay of the land as a new
Why
board
don't you
member.
make a motion to cancel the July 6th meeting, James?
I make a motion to cancel the July 6th.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No? All those in favor of canceling the July 6th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All right, okay. All right, July 6th meeting is canceled. That, I make a motion to adjourn.
Hey, can I ask you guys real fast? I
Certainly.
was trying to get a lay of the land. Would it have been appropriate for me to ask the engineer a question or two?
Sure,
Yes.
yeah,
I think,
absolutely. Yeah, that's
um,
what you're here for.
why don't we close this and we can.
Yes, okay, let's close the meeting first before we all go away and we'll go over with the new guy, whatever we have to do.
Right.
All right, so the meeting is adjourned. All right, thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.